Violent protests and riots continue to convulse the country, and thankfully there are many peaceful protests which have great value in the discussion about police brutality. President Trump's numbers are in the tank. His team is deciding what to do about that. Meanwhile, there is a deafening silence from Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer about rioting. Are they going to just ban certain police departments? It's looking that way. I'm Randall Terry. This is Voice of Much Needed Resistance.
Those who forsake the law praise the wicked. Those who uphold the law resist them. Welcome to the Voice of Resistance.
For those who have ears to hear, this is us as a nation reaping what we have sowed. I don't know any other way to put it, and I don't know what miracle, what lightning strike from God Almighty it will take for people to see that the convulsions we are experiencing are directly tied to blood that cries from the ground. You realize that God told the Jews, he said, be careful to not kill your children, because the nations who were in the land of Canaan before you killed their children. So I am driving them out. But it also said that the land vomited out its inhabitants. And God said, be careful lest the land vomit you out. The very word picture of a nation, the land of the nation, convulsing, vomiting out its inhabitants, was directly connected to the shedding of blood. In a country where you can kill your own offspring, what's the big deal if you go and break into Macy's and loot it? Really? All right, I want to start from the beginning. We've got a lot to talk about. We're going to talk about police brutality, systemic racism, messaging that matters, the president's difficulties, all of it in today's program. I hope that you'll stay with me to the end. And I will also get to what you and I can do. I'm a leader. I'm an activist. The purpose of this program is to help people think and then to help people act, to inspire them to act. So let us begin. Systemic racism is real. I'm white. I adopted 2 black children. I have spent a lot of time with African American men in prisons where I have gone for my peaceful protest. I know a little bit more about African American culture and having had communications with a lot of African American people. I know more than a lot of people, and having adopted 2 black children. I just, maybe I'm not an expert, but I know more than the average bear. Systemic racism is true. Now, what that means is, at the end of slavery, we had the Jim Crow laws. That is systemic racism. What that means is, in the system itself is racism. We had people that tried desperately to keep black people from voting. We had people who made it illegal for an African American to use the same drinking fountain or bathroom as a white person. Now, those days are gone. So there have been great victories. There has been great progress. Yesterday, our pastor read a letter of an African American woman who is an OBGYN with a very successful practice just outside of Dallas. And our pastor and she were friends growing up. They've stayed in contact. And she wrote a letter saying how tired she was of racism. Now, this is a successful black female OBGYN who just bore her heart and said, when each of my boys became teenagers, I had to give them the talk. And I thought, the talk that you are going to be targeted by certain individuals because of the color of your skin. And she went on to say, for example, that in the last year, her 17-year-old boy, who is a driver, has been pulled over 5 times by police. Never issued a ticket. Was just pulled over. Twice had the car searched. And it was because he was black and he was in a certain area of town. So that is profiling. That is a part of a system that exists in some areas of the country that is still racist. Now, here's where it gets really murky. Racism is inherently a sin because all of us, let me back it up. There's only one race, the human race. We all have the same parents, Adam and Eve, who probably were Arab in their skin tone. They certainly would not have been as Caucasian as a lot of us. We all have the same parents. Christ died for all of us. There is only one race. It is the human race. Racism, in part, not in totality, but in part, is from the idea that we evolved, and there are people who have in the past made ludicrous statements that African American people are from some lower form, lower species. There are people who to this day think that African Americans did not come from the same parents as white Americans. It's ludicrous, it's stupid, it's insane, it's racist, it's sin. I've got to take a break. When we come back, I want to talk about how systemic racism on the Democrat plantation has helped destroy the African American family, which in turn has helped produce a harvest of young thugs, I think is what Obama called them. I'll be right back. There have been so many studies about the impact of the welfare state. Now remember, the party of Lincoln, the Republicans, they are credited with ending slavery. The Democrat Party helped start the Ku Klux Klan. The activists of the Democrat Party and the activists of the Ku Klux Klan, the criminals of the Klan, oftentimes were the same people. And Lyndon Baines Johnson figured out a way to create a new plantation. He said that we'll have every N-word voting for us for 200 years if they could get the Great Society, because he knew that if he could make them dependent upon government money, that they would be loyal to the party that gave them that money. But the hitch was that they would reward multiple out-of-wedlock births, and they would financially punish those who got married. So the welfare check got bigger with an unmarried woman having multiple children, and it would get smaller, the check would get smaller if she married. So this was systemic racism. And it was a systemic attack on the African American family. The single greatest factor for young men joining gangs, statistically, is the absence of a father in the house. Think that through with me. So the Democrats funded this so-called Great Society. They helped, with an economic incentive, destroy the African American family, millions of them, and then created, in this vacuum of fatherless homes, young men who were a prey to become parts of gangs, to become criminals, to become violent. So we then got to the point where 1 in 4 young black men under the age of 25 are in jail, in prison, on parole, on probation. We got to the point where Jesse Jackson said, when I'm in the streets of Washington and I hear footsteps coming up behind me and I turn around, I am relieved to see that it's not young black men. I mean, this is horrifying. You had Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg say in a New York Times interview that they thought when abortion was made legal that it would reduce crime because undesirable elements. I don't remember her exact phrase, but it was racist. We're going to kill these young black men while they're still in the womb so they won't grow up to be criminals. That's racist. Black genocide is racist. The fact that 1/3 of all babies that are killed in America are African American. While African Americans only make up 12% of the population, 1/3 of the babies killed are black. They put these abortion mills in black communities, Planned Parenthoods in black communities. The founder of Planned Parenthood called black people human weeds. And yet we're in the insane place where the Jesse Jacksons and the Al Sharptons and the new crop of left-wing lunatics, black people, are rushing to the Democrat plantation, embracing the Democrat plantation, embracing the genocide that baby-killing Democrats are putting into the black community. It's insane. And then they want to turn around and say that we're racist. I feel like I'm in a twilight zone. I feel like I'm in crazy town. I've got to take a break. When we come back, I'm going to talk about President Trump and his recent spat with an archbishop, a Catholic bishop in Washington, D.C. Please don't go. Welcome back, friend. Protesting is awesome. Rioting is criminal. Demonstrating, protected by the First Amendment, smashing windows and stealing stuff, it's a criminal act. I know protesting. I have personally led thousands of people in the street. I led the largest peaceful civil disobedience movement in American history with over 75,000 arrests. I've been arrested almost 50 times. I've spent 2 Christmases in prison. I support what these people are doing, the rage that they feel for George Floyd being killed by that policeman. I support the rage. I support the protest. But the looting and the rioting, that's not about George Floyd. It's about a criminal element that are taking advantage of the situation, and the leaders of the Democrat Party, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Biden, not a word out of Nancy Pelosi. It's despicable. They want this foment. They want these convulsions because they think that it will help defeat Trump in November. That's what this is all about. And people, the fight between good and evil is becoming so palpable. I don't know where we're going to be as a nation 10, 20, 30 years from now. I have no idea what my sons are going to inherit. It's terrifying to me. This is, in 1989, I said, this is not the country I grew up in. I was born in 59. 60s is where things started to get unstable. I was glued to the TV in 1968 because my parents were political activists. Apple doesn't fall far from the tree. This is like the summer of 68. But this is way worse because the cohesion of a Judeo-Christian ethic that used to bind us together is long gone. Politeness, respect for the elderly, yes sir, yes ma'am, standing in a show of respect, it's all gone. I mean, there's little pockets of it, don't get me wrong, especially amongst the homeschoolers, but the consensus that held us together is gone. And now we have millennials that want to be socialists. They don't even understand what it is that they are calling for, but they want it, and it will result. All of this together could result in the end of this nation. And a nation of this size, an empire of this magnitude, does not die overnight. It doesn't even die in a generation. It's slow, but we're witnessing it. We're seeing it. And Trump was God's gift to us as a reprieve, because he couldn't be controlled by the left or the Judas-like conservative establishment. I believe he would take a bullet for us. God, please don't let our president be assassinated. Please, God, protect this man. Pray for his safety, people. But I'm telling you that the fight, the turmoil, the convulsion around Donald Trump, it's not just about his character, or that he's from New York and he shoots his mouth off and he says belligerent tweets. It's not just that. It's that he won't kowtow to them, that he won't flinch, he won't blink. And he says things that tens of millions of us think. George Bush and Mitt Romney aren't going to endorse Donald Trump. Who cares? George Bush the Younger controlled the U.S. House with his party, controlled the U.S. Senate from 2000 to 2002, and they just kept giving money to Planned Parenthood. Our pro-life president, George Bush, just kept funding the nation's largest criminal syndicate of child killing. And we're supposed to wish that George Bush and Mitt Romney signed into law a bill in Massachusetts that the government would pay for anyone who wanted to kill their baby. We're supposed to want Mitt Romney and George Bush to endorse Trump. Those men are part of the problem. All right, I told you I was going to talk about the spat with the Catholic Church. Let me take a quick break. You're going to want to see this, believe me. Don't go away. Welcome back, friend. As you probably know, last week there was some serious incidents breaking out in front of the White House. Over 50 police and Secret Service were injured. And finally, they said, we've had enough. And they used tear gas to move them out of Lafayette Park. And then the president went over to St. John's Church and stood there holding a Bible, was a photo op, said, look, I'm not in a bunker. I'm not going to be intimidated at the White House, and we're not going to let people throw things at the Secret Service and at police. That's not protesting. That's rioting. That's causing injury. There's a difference. I know, and you know. So the president then went to the St. John Paul II Cultural Center, and he and Melania, as they're seeing here, they went and they prayed. Well, the fruit of that prayer at that Catholic institution was that he was rebuked by the Bishop of Washington, D.C., the new bishop. And let me read to you what he said. This is Wilton Gregory. I find it baffling and reprehensible that any Catholic facility would allow itself to be so egregiously misused and manipulated in a fashion that violates our religious principles, which call us to defend the rights of all people, even those with whom we might disagree. St. John Paul II was an ardent defender of the rights and dignity of human beings. His legacy bears vivid witness to that truth. He would certainly not condone the use of tear gas and other deterrents to silence, scatter, or intimidate them for a photo opportunity in front of a place of worship and peace. Why not a word about the Secret Service being injured? These people weren't just peacefully protesting. I've spent hundreds of hours in Lafayette Park, across the street from the White House. Hundreds of hours I've spent there, protesting, praying. So here's what happened. There's an archbishop who used to be the papal nuncio, that's the Pope's ambassador to America, who lived in D.C. and is a great, devout pastor, bishop, fierce Catholic. He rebuked Bishop Gregory. This is really something. Listen to this. Grace and peace are always with you in Jesus Christ, our only Lord. Although I am no longer among you in Washington, D.C. as Apostolic Nuncio, I feel particularly united to all of you in this time of so grave moral and physical trials with which you are afflicted, and I wish to send you the sentiments of my deepest affection in Christ. Unfortunately, the Catholic Church is led by many false pastors. Over the last 20 years, your Diocese of Washington, in particular, and now for the third time, has been and continues to be deeply afflicted and wounded by false shepherds, whose way of life is full of lies, deceits, lusts, and corruption. Wherever they have been, they were a cause of serious scandal for various local churches, for your entire country, and for the whole church. Do not follow them as they lead you to perdition. They are mercenaries. They teach and practice falsehoods and corruptions. Follow with perseverance the teachings and examples of the holy pastors and priests who are among you. Mary, Mother of the Church, Mother of Mercy, pray and intercede for us with your Son, Jesus Christ, so that he may have mercy on all us sinners. I bless you with all my heart. Carlo Maria Vigano, Archbishop, June 3rd. Friends, this is like a thud. This is like a mountain falling. Vigano was the papal nuncio under Benedict. He is a fierce defender of unborn babies. And by the way, John Paul was a fierce defender of unborn babies. This Bishop Gregory, why doesn't he have a word about the babies being killed? Why doesn't he think, wait a minute, Trump's trying to put pro-life judges on the court to overturn Roe versus Wade and stop the Holocaust? No, because he's a left-wing traitor to Christianity in general and to Catholicism in particular. And Vigano calls him out as a false shepherd. Friends, this is going to be a big fight, and it is going to impact the church around the world, both Catholic and Protestant. I got to run. God bless you. Go to our website, randallterry.com. Please help us out.